everybody, welcome back to my channel. Now if you are new to my channel, I want you to go ahead and hit that subscribe button for me, and if you I want you to go ahead and turn your post notifications on, that way you're notified whenever I post a new video. Today I will be showing you guys how I make my delicious Cajun style gumbo. My gumbo recipe consists of several different meats, those being beef sausage, chicken, snow crab, crab claw meat, and shrimp. Now I usually use crawfish tails inside as well, but I couldn't find any at the supermarket. Now to start your gumbo, what we're going to have to do is do the tedious but well worth the job of prepping your meal. Right here what I'm doing is I'm cutting up my seasonings, and my seasonings consist of the Holy Trinity. For those of you who don't know what the Holy Trinity is, it's usually 3 different seasonings, and the major seasonings the Holy Trinity consists of is bell pepper, celery, and onion. Okay, so here I have a whole bell pepper and a half, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, don't quote me on this. I literally recorded this weeks ago, and I'm just editing it and learning how to edit and do voiceovers, so on and so forth. So y'all bear with me. But again, I'm chopping up my bell pepper, and what I do is I chop it up really, really fine, as if it was in a food processor. Yes, I know I need a food processor. Y'all give me time. I'm going to invest in one. But yeah, I went ahead and chopped up the bell peppers, and I chopped them up until they were like, really, really, really small. Now, disclaimer, I do not use measurements. Most of us don't, and I know it's sad, a lot of people ask for measurements, but when it comes to something like gumbo, your main ingredients, like your seasonings and your meats, you're really putting in how much you want. When it comes to your seasoning, you're seasoning it to taste. Now I'm going to show you the seasonings that I use, but you literally just season your gumbo to taste to how you feel you want it to taste, or as all of us would say, to our ancestors come down and say, "Child, that's enough." All right, so here I'm going to put these bell peppers into a container. That way I can start cutting on my celery. Now with my celery, I think I used, if I'm not mistaken, like 8 stalks of celery. This was a pretty big pot of gumbo because I was taking gumbo to a friend's house as well as my family eating it. And let me tell you guys, this gumbo was one of my best pots of gumbo I've ever made. It was delicious. So I went ahead and cut up roughly 8 stalks of celery. And just to be clear, I did clean my celery off. I don't see the point in showing that part, but I did go ahead and clean my celery off. Now look at this big old mess, y'all. This is one other reason why I need a food processor, because these messes get out of control. I'm going to invest in a big wooden cutting board later on, and some better knives, of course, but we're gonna work with what we got. Okay, so here I'm doing the celery the same way I did my bell pepper. I'm cutting it up in really small chunks, and I feel like the smaller it is, the better, because it really releases those flavors and it helps build this gumbo very well. The smaller it is, like especially things like with garlic, you want to chop it up really, really fine to ensure that you're releasing those flavors into your meals. Big chunks help sometimes, but I'm telling you, those smaller chunks seems to make your meals a lot more flavorful than big, huge chunks of vegetables. But here we go again. Like, if you like big chunks of vegetables inside of your gumbo, by all means, help yourself. This is your food. This is how you like to make your food. I'm just giving you a base to work off of. Okay, so here we are cutting up 1 medium onion, and I'm going to cut the entire thing up, but what I did is cut up half and half, because I noticed that when I was cutting up big, huge amounts of food, pieces of seasoning were getting everywhere, opposed to cutting it up in smaller batches. It was easier to cut up and chop smaller without me making such a big mess. Here again, I chopped the onions up the exact same way. Once I chopped them down, I went ahead and chopped them up into really, really small pieces, so let the aromatics get into my food. You can't lose. Now, these are beef kielbasa sausages that I used. All I did is use a pack. These sausages, I actually seen them on another YouTuber's channel. She used it for her mukbang, Miss Kim B. I didn't even realize these were those sausages until I seen it later on, but these sausages are delicious and they are beef. I chose to use beef opposed to pork because a lot of people, try to stray away from eating pork. Y'all hear me jamming in the background. Yeah, I didn't mute that, unfortunately. But like I said, I cut a pack and one whole pack and one sausage out of another pack inside of this gumbo recipe. And then after that, I put it inside of a bowl and moved on to my chicken. Just to clarify, you guys, before you ask me, yes, I do wash my chicken. I don't care what Dr. Oz say. It's something that has been instilled in us since we were young. Our grandmothers don't play that. So, I went ahead and washed my chicken before I put it onto this cutting board and start slicing my chicken up, okay? Now, I use chicken breast tenderloins and just simply, like I said, clean them and cut them up. You know how we do. We clean it, rinse it off, and then clean it again when we're cutting it with the knife, cutting off all the pieces that we don't want. So simply cutting it up in chunks and putting it aside in a bowl. Now, some people use different types of chicken inside their gumbo. Some people like chicken wings inside their gumbo. And it's not a bad thing because the bone does add flavor. But me, myself, I don't like the bone inside of my gumbo. So I stick with chicken breast. Now here, what I'm doing is I'm going to devein roughly 2 pounds of medium shrimp. I was going to do larger shrimp, but I feel like these are big enough. I did peeled and deveined 2 pounds of medium shrimp. And I'm going to tell you guys, I have been peeling and deveining shrimp so many times that I have got this down to a science. I literally peel and devein shrimp quick. I mean, like 10 pounds I can do in under an hour, So if you need your shrimp devein, holla at your girl. Once I got through peeling and deveining the shrimp, I did go ahead and clean the shrimp after. Y'all know how we do. We like to clean our meat. Another disclaimer. These are meats that I choose to add into my gumbo. Whatever types of meats you like to use, you can use what you want. This was a fairly expensive gumbo. If you want, you can just use chicken and shrimp. You don't necessarily have to use all the meats that I'm using, but I chose to use these because I wanted a meaty, flavorful gumbo. Now here what we're doing is we're going to chop up some whole garlic cloves. I know a lot of people tend to use minced garlic, and yes, I use the minced garlic in the jar as well, but when it comes to making complex meals such as this, I like to chop my garlic up because I feel like chopped garlic tastes better opposed to this minced garlic. It just has a better taste to it, and like I was saying, when you chop garlic up like that, the aromatics get in the air, the aromatics get into your food. It makes your food a lot more flavorful. And I think I chopped up roughly 10 or 12 cloves of garlic. It looks more like 15, but it could be 15, but so we're going to go with that, 15 cloves of garlic, because I use garlic in two different times during this cooking process. So like I said, I chop my garlic up really, really, really fine. And I just simply set it to the side. Now here is my prep spread. I made it look all cute for y'all, yay, because if it wasn't for this video, it would have been on all different color plates and bowls and Tupperware, but I did it. I tried to make it look cute for y'all. I hope y'all enjoying this video. So here what I'm doing is I put a saucepan on the stove, and I'm going to add extra virgin olive oil into that saucepan. So this is to ensure that my meat does not stick. And there we go, that extra virgin, that EEOV. And then I went ahead and add half of that chopped garlic that I used. I went ahead and add half of it into this pan. And I let it simmer for just a hot second while stirring it around and fixing my camera, obviously, while stirring it around. And once I let it simmer just for a little while, I don't want to cook it too long and burn my garlic. I went ahead and I grabbed my bowl of chicken and I added my chicken onto the saucepan as well. And what we're going to do is we're going to saute this chicken. Now, I didn't saute this chicken until it was completely done. I literally did it till it was like, I mean, it sounds weird to say medium, but I did it till it was like medium because I'm going to let it cook the rest of the way inside of the gumbo. And there is a reason why. I feel like that chicken juice help the gumbo. I mean, I didn't want to cook all the juices out of the chicken, and I feel like the chicken juice helps the flavor of the gumbo. I went ahead and seasoned my gumbo as well. Y'all, don't jump down my throat. It's going to take a minute for me to adjust not using Goya, but right now I'm using this Goya adobo and complete seasoning. Now, it doesn't say complete seasoning, but it is complete seasoning to me. It's just like a Badia complete seasoning. And I also use Shazam. Hey, Shazam. And like I said, you guys can use any seasonings that you want. Like you season it to taste. These are just the seasonings that I chose to use. And it came out delicious. I'm sure you know, when I first made gumbo, my very first time, it was delicious. I mean, like delicious, like people were coming back to my house to get another bowl of gumbo. So, you know, I kind of skilled myself from the first time. But when I tell you this time, or maybe it's just because I haven't made it in so long, but this time, this gumbo was fire. Oh my God, it was so good. So here, like I said, I'm sauteing my chicken, and I sauteed it till it's not completely cooked. I sauteed it until it was like medium, you know, like if you had to measure the term of a steak, medium. Y'all hear me jamming in the back? Don't pay me no mind. Y'all know how we do. When we make these complex meals, we been having to have our music on because these meals be taking a couple of hours. Now, once I got done, I went ahead and put that chicken to the side and put that pan back on the stove and added some more olive oil. And into this olive oil, I added my beef sausage. Now, a lot of people who make gumbo, what they do is they tend to put the sausage straight into the pot of gumbo. But me, I like texture on my sausages, so I fry my sausages up prior to putting it in the pot. This is like the opposite of the chicken. I fried all the juices out and I literally just dumped it in a bowl and added straight into the pot with juices and all without straining it, so I could have those oils inside of my gumbo. It didn't hurt nothing, y'all. So like I say, I fry my gumbo up. I fry my sausage until they got like a little crisp on them because like I said, I want texture on my sausage. I went ahead and put that sausage to the side and went and cleaned my pan out so I can go ahead and get started on the most complex part of this gumbo and the most important part of this gumbo, and that is the roux, okay? Now, roux is simply an oil-based flour mixture that you cook down until it darkens. The darker you get it, the more in depth you get it, the nuttier the taste is, the better the flavor. Okay, so all I'm doing is I added roughly a cup of vegetable oil, well, like 3/4 cup of vegetable oil, and I'm adding flour. And I'm adding flour till I get it thickened to like a paste consistent of, let's say, well, I would say oatmeal, but I feel like, I mean, not oatmeal, grits, but I feel like that's a little thick, like baby food. Now here I'm just mixing the flour in, trying to get all the chunks out of the flour because I want this roux to be smooth. So I'm stirring this roux. I tell you, when I tell you, it is best to sit by this roux. Do not walk away from this stove because if you do, you will burn this roux. All you're doing is sitting there and you're stirring it until you get it to a really dark consistency. And I would say the consistency of chocolate. And, you know, like I said, it's starting to get dark. It got this slight light peanut butter looking color. And my ring light was rather bright. I should have turned it down so you guys can get a better view of it. But I just want you to understand the concept behind it. I want you to stay right there by the stove, continue to stir that roux. And me, like as my roux was cooking, when it got too thick, I tend to add just a little bit more oil in it. And since I had the extra virgin olive oil in front of me, I will slightly add a little bit into it. That way it doesn't get too thick. I like my roux a little smooth, and there is a reason why. I'll tell you later. So here I go adding in some of that extra virgin olive oil to kind of thin out my roux. It didn't hurt anything. I know a lot of people will think that it's going to change. I mean, even though it changed the temperature slightly, but it's still going to get hot. It's oil. So this is as it's darkening. Like I said, the darker the better. You have to be patient with making gumbo. You can't rush this process. You really have to be patient with making gumbo. So this is the outcome of my roux after me stirring it and getting it to a dark color. What I did is I put it to the side and let it cool off just a little while, and then I brought it back. Reason being, I hate when I add my vegetables into a roux while it's hot. The vegetables have water in it, and it goes through this crazy popping and this big old fiasco and all these fireworks, and I just didn't feel like that. So I always put my roux to the side, let it cool off a little bit, and then I add my holy trinity, which would be the bell pepper, the onion, and the celery. And then I let it cook down in that roux and let it simmer for a little while and break those flavors up. As you can see, I turned my eye down some. I'm sorry, I turned my eye up because I wanted to cook my vegetables inside my roux. My seasonings. I'm going to mix vegetables and seasonings up. You guys just excuse me. You understand what I'm saying. So here I let my roux simmer for a little while. Magic was in the air in this kitchen, you guys. It was in the air. So once I let it simmer for about, I think it was like roughly 10 to 12 minutes, I put the roux to the side and I added now I just bought this pot that day. I needed a bigger pot, so I bought this pot that day, and what I'm doing is I'm adding in, I think these were quart size chicken broths. I went ahead and added in 2 quart size chicken broths at the moment. Now, I have heard of people using beef broth opposed to chicken broth. I don't even think that's something I would do. Maybe I'll try it one day just to see. But using chicken broth for me really works best for the flavor that I was trying to accomplish. Once I got done adding that chicken broth, I went ahead and add that roux mixture with the seasonings in it. Now, it doesn't look all that appetizing right now, but trust me, when I tell you this is going to be delicious, it's going to be delicious. So I added in my seasoning and roux mixture, and once I did that, I stirred it, and I was breaking down like the flour inside of the chicken broth. So I continue to stir it, whisk it, and break those that flour apart from those seasonings. So it causes it to thicken up as well. So you want to like generously stir it, blah 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 blah. You want to generously whisk it and till you break that apart. And then once I got done with that, I went ahead and added 1 more quart size container of chicken broth. And I stirred it. Once I was done with that, I went ahead and stirred it as well. Now, once I got through stirring that, I went ahead and grabbed my other portion of that garlic that I had chopped up, and I added it into my my mixture, my gumbo pot, and I stirred that around. It's never no such thing as too much garlic. Once I got done doing that, I went ahead and grabbed my chicken. Well, I had combined my chicken and sausage together. I grabbed that bowl of chicken and sausage and I added it into the pot as well. And I stirred that. It looked good already. I already know it wasn't even done, and it was starting to look good already. When I got done with that, I went ahead and seasoned my pot of stock, my gumbo. I call it stock because I feel like I hadn't created gumbo yet. So I used my Goya Chazon seasoning. It looks like complete to me, so I've been calling it complete. And my Goya adobo, as well as my Cajun seasoning. Y'all notice I use a lot, but this is a big old pot, okay? And I'm gonna season it some more. I went ahead and threw in 3 fresh bay leaves. And I went ahead and used some garlic powder. Now, yes, I did add the garlic cloves, but when have you ever seen somebody just add minced garlic to their meal and not add garlic powder? Y'all know how we do. And then I went ahead and added Cajun seasoning. Not Cajun, cayenne pepper. And it's not just for flavor, but it's just for spice. Now, I like my gumbo to have a slight spice to it. I don't like it spicy to where my nose is running, because if you guys know me, anytime I eat something spicy, my nose start going crazy. So I didn't do get as spicy as too hot to where my nose, if I eat it, my nose is running. But I got just enough spice that you can feel it and still taste your food. And I went ahead and stirred that all together. And this is where the magic started happening. I put it on my lid and I let it simmer. I was in this kitchen jamming the whole day. Now, what I did is I went ahead and added in a can of crab meat. Now, this is the type of crab meat that a lot of people use to make crab cakes. So I added in 1 whole large can of lump crab meat into the pot. And I stirred it around. I just like my gumbo to have a lot of complex ingredients, a lot of different meats. Like I said, I wish I had the crawfish, but I couldn't find them. That was the worst task ever, trying to find these crawfish. Now, I took some snow crab legs and I broke them apart. These weren't the best looking snow crab legs because I couldn't find any good ones, and the ones that were good were extremely too pricey. And gumbo's already expensive anyway, so you kind of got what you got. So I got these crab legs from Kroger, and all I did is break them apart and crush them up and just threw them inside the pot. Now, people use different types of crabs for their gumbo. I've seen people use, like I said, snow crab legs. I've seen people use Dungeness crab legs. And I also seen people use blue crab. And blue crab is usually the staple for gumbo. But y'all don't come for me. I cook how I like my food. I don't necessarily even know how to open up a blue crab. I will learn one day. I guess that'll be a task for one of my mukbang videos. But I like snow crab. I know how to get into snow crab. Snow crab is just as good to me. So that's what I used. And I went and stirred that snow crab up inside of that gumbo. And I closed that lid and I let that gumbo simmer for a little while. Now look how chunky that gumbo is turning out. Now, just to let you guys know, I did taste the gumbo several times off camera just to see if I like the flavors, and if, you know, it wasn't hot enough for me, or so on and so forth, I added more seasoning. So like I said, you just season it to taste. Here what I'm doing is I'm going ahead and adding those medium shrimp that I purchased, and I do that at the end of the gumbo. You don't want to do it at the beginning because, you know, you don't want your shrimp to overcook. And I mean, there's nothing worse than an overcooked shrimp, I swear. I mean, I'd rather eat a burnt piece of chicken. Like, nothing worse than overcooked shrimp. So I went ahead and added that shrimp in there. And off camera too, I went ahead and removed some of the excess gumbo liquid because I noticed that my pot was getting too full. So yeah, it's gonna look a little different because I'm gonna reduce some of that liquid that's in there. That way, you know, I don't have an overflowing mess. Don't it look delicious, y'all? It looks so good. I'm getting hungry looking at it. So here I added one of the best ingredients known to man when it comes to gumbo, gumbo filet powder. Now this right here, this literally is like the gumbo saver. I mean, you can't go wrong if you did your gumbo and you add gumbo filet and it don't taste right, something's wrong. Because gumbo filet is literally like now some people don't add gumbo filet, and you don't necessarily have to add it, but this is like the lifesaver for gumbo advocates, especially if you're new to making gumbo. Make sure you add that gumbo filet at the end. There was a big old pot of gumbo, so yeah, I had to put a lot. And I went ahead and added more Cajun spices as well. Obviously, I tasted it prior to doing that. I know you guys are like, she keep adding all these spices, but obviously I tasted it before doing that. And no, my gumbo was not salty. My gumbo was perfecto. And I went ahead and added some more cayenne pepper, not just for taste, but for spice as well. And I stirred that together. And I stirred it from the bottom, and I make sure you always stir the bottom, scrape the bottom of that pot, because you are messing, you know, with a flour base, and it tends to stick on the bottom if you don't stir from the bottom. Once you get everything mixed in, it won't stick, but if you don't have all your flour literally mixed into your pot well, it will stick at the bottom, and it'll start burning, and your gumbo will smell burnt, and you don't want that. Now right here, I went ahead and added myself a little more complete seasoning. I'm telling you, I was tasting it. I knew what I liked. Now what I did here is I like my gumbo slightly thicker, so I went ahead and made a flour water mixture. I simply mixed up some flour inside some water till it was thick like cream, and then I poured it inside my gumbo and I mixed it in my gumbo. No, it does not take away from flavor, but it is a thickening agent. A lot of people will use cornstarch, but I'll use flour. If I don't have cornstarch on here, I'll use a flour water mixture. Yeah, grandmas know about that. And went ahead and closed that pot and let it simmer. And here is the end result. All I did is let it simmer for probably, after I added that shrimp, I literally let it simmer for probably like 20 minutes. That whole time span you seen me add those seasonings was all within a 20-minute span. And you see all that chicken at the bottom and that crab meat and those crabs. When I tell you guys this gumbo was delicious, it was delicious, okay? I want to thank you guys for watching my video. I hope I taught you something. Please go ahead, like, share, and subscribe, and make sure you turn on that notification bell. Thank you.